Hello, ladies. Welcome to our June conversation of women and blended families. I'm Gayla Grace. I serve on the Family Life Blended team. Our ministry is all about serving blended families. And today, the focus of our conversation is on understanding our men, learning more about what we can do as women to help them thrive in their role as a dad and or a stepdad. My guest, Gil Stuart, is a therapist. He's a dad and a stepdad in a blended family. He has a lot of wisdom to help us. Now, before I get started, I'd love to know who is with me live. If you'll put your name and where you're from in the comments, that's always fun to see who is here. And also, as we wait for ladies to come on, be sure to tag a friend who you know would benefit from our conversation. Even if they can't join us now, they can always watch the recorded version later. And remember, we love to see your questions in the comments related to our topic today. If we don't get to answer it live, we'll be sure to answer it in the comments so you can watch for this. And I do see ladies joining us from Texas, Oregon. I see Kim from Florida is on here. Arkansas. We have lots of ladies tuning in already. Now let's go ahead and get started. Let me introduce our guest, Gil Stuart. As I said, he's a dad, a stepdad in his blended family. He and his wife Brenda have 7 children between them who they refer to as those people. They also have several grandchildren. He is a therapist and co-author of Restored and Remarried, and he has produced a series called Unsung Heroes that is dedicated to men in a dad role in blended families. Welcome, Gil. Thank you for joining me today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
It's an honor. I'm humbled to be amongst all these women. So I'm a little shaky and my hands are a little sweaty right now, but I am so glad to be sitting here with you. And we'll just see what God has in mind. So thanks for having me.
Well, we don't just let any guys on here. We're kind of picky about it. So we are glad to have you. I know you've got a lot of great information, Gil, and I want to start by hearing a little bit more about your story. I want to know how long you've been married, and I want to know how you landed on calling your children those people. And whatever else you want to tell me.
Righto. Well, Brenda and I have been married just a little shy of 23 years now. We started blending our family that long ago. We both came into the remarriage through divorce. And so the gateway into this pathway is one of pain. Mm-hmm. And so we want to recognize that was kind of how I showed up here. And then how did we call those people? It was the most respectful way that we could respond to them when we were really frustrated with one another's children.
Okay.
And so it was like those people, it's all in the tone. Yes. Those people, sometimes very endearing, but other times it was like, what are those people doing? Meaning, what's your child doing? It was a respectful way to let out our frustrations and yet still be endearing. So it became humor, but it helped diffuse our frustrations.
I like that. So really, it references your stepchildren, is what you're saying. When
all of them, yes, back and forth. Because sometimes, it's your child, or this is one of mine. So yeah, those people.
Yeah, so. I love it. It's fun to hear that, and there are things that we develop along the way in regards to how we reference. My husband used to talk about the other home as the dark side. I mean, now we never said that in front of our kids, but that was a term that we knew what each other was saying, if that was what we referenced.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I know that your motto is always forward. I've heard you say that. I've seen that several times. I would love for you to help us understand, how do you relate that to your blended family story? Always forward.
Always forward. And the second part of that is just go slow. Okay. Always forward, just go slow. The origination of that basically is when sometimes you really don't know what to do because you're in a blended family conundrum. It's an impossible situation.
Right.
You really don't have an answer. Sometimes always forward is just standing still. You've often heard either you're moving forward or you're moving backwards. Well, in some cases, always forward might be just standing your ground and saying, okay, God, what what is the wisdom for this situation? And that's the reason why sometimes it goes slow. I say it to my clients as a word of encouragement to say, take it slow, take it easy. And sometimes I'll kind of give them a little jab and say, hey, speed it up a little bit. But it's the place of just being able to keep some forward progress going, even when you're uncertain. Take it slow, but keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think I've even heard you said that sometimes standing still can still be always forward in a different kind of way. I mean, do you agree with that?
Be still and know that I am God.
Yes.
You got to stand still sometimes. And waiting is not passive, it is very active, especially when you don't know what to do. So that's when it's like standing still is actually sometimes moving forward. And I think as human beings, men or women, we want answers, but it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Sometimes it's very counterintuitive, and I think that's the place of sometimes to speed things up. You actually got to slow down.
Right. And one of the things I say a lot is relationship building in your blended family is probably going to take longer than you want. These relationships don't come together quickly. Often.
Right. So right. And when it does, it's like, what just happened?
Right.
That was a win. Oh, really? I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, I think, yeah.
Well, I want to ask some questions where you can really help us, Gil, because as women, I mean, I'll just speak for myself. I don't always get it right in relation to how I've tried to help my husband. And sometimes it's helpful, I think, to hear from the guy in regards to behavior, things we say, how we say it, all of that kind of stuff. But I want to start by just asking, what were your biggest struggles at the beginning of stepfamily life for you and Brenda?
Oh, wow. Well, when I think back on that, it seems kind of like yesterday that one of the very first things that happened after Brenda and I were married, I moved into what was her home before. It was kind of the territory that her sons were, it was kind of their home court. And so for me, I was kind of entering into foreign territory, but I was somehow going to make it my home with Brenda, our home. And so there was this awkwardness of like, this is now my wife, but this is your mother. Who are you? Can I trust you? It was like, what's my place? And it was understanding what was my limit of authority as opposed to what was not my limit of authority and how to work with that. Because, hey, I'm a dad. I got 4 kids and I'm not a novice, but, at that point in time when we first got married, my oldest was 22. My youngest was just about 11. So, Brenda's sons were 16 to 9-ish. And so it was like, I knew what to do, but I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And that was a dilemma where it was like, okay, how do I coordinate and collaborate with Brenda? And sometimes we didn't see eye to eye because we didn't parent the same way.
Right.
And that was one of the biggest challenges, is how do we get on the same page from a masculine and feminine perspective? But now it's in a step kid situation. And that was a big challenge because then it impacted our marriage.
Right.
Which was the core. And that's kind of one of the other themes from Restored and Remarried, is if you ain't got the marriage, you ain't got nothing. It is the strongest bond for the whole thing. And when I say that to people who've never been in a remarriage, God bless them, you don't want to do this. This is hard. They don't get it. It's kind of like, well, yeah, you're in a nuclear family, but in a step family, that bond of the marriage it's the strongest one, but it's one that we have chosen. The bond that you have with your children, it's natural, it's biological. You don't have that same bond with a stepchild. You have to build it, and that can be really complicated.
Right. And there's a longer history with your biological kids. So in the beginning, it feels that the marriage relationship feels a little fragile. And then when you do have these differences in how you parent kids together, and then it tugs at you and it tugs at the marriage. So how did you get on the same page? How did you resolve that?
I just told Brenda to do it my way and we'd be fine.
Oh, gee. I'm sure Brenda went along with that.
Yeah, that created a rift for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the real answer, Gil?
Well, no, I'm kidding. We had to find ways of which to find middle ground. and what was going to be the best for us.
Okay.
And so the principle was, if I know this is not good for us, I'm not doing it. I really want to do it, but I'm not going to do it because I know it's not good for us. And it's not going to move the bond or the needle of bonding with that stepchild or remaining kind and tender with my own children, which sometimes felt like I was betraying my own children, which is,
Yes.
I'll kind of come back to that later if the question comes up, because it's what I refer to as reverse betrayal. I am bonding with my stepchildren and my wife, but sometimes because of the parenting thing, I was not with my children, and that ripped my heart in two.
Right.
So it was hard for Brenda to understand that, and that's why we came up with some terminology. So it was like, I'm in this dilemma getting pulled in two directions, and where's my loyalty going to go? Well, I love my wife, but I love my children. And then your children, oh, those people, you see where this is going? That created major conflict. And the way that we found a way through it was to say, what's best for us is, oh yeah, I really don't want to do this, but I know it's good for us. I'm going to do it. And that was hard, because that created an environment to where either there was going to be conflict or humility.
Yes. Yeah. Humility is a big one. I actually, that can make such a huge difference. But what you're saying, it sounds like, Gil, is at the core, you always would come back to what is best for the marriage, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you ain't got the marriage, you ain't got nothing.
Right. And that's the thing that I do think can get neglected, especially y'all had 7 kids, Randy and I have 5, and especially in bigger families, man, you get pulled on by all these kids and the dynamics, because every child has a different situation going on. They have their own stuff that's happening, and that impacts us as parents and step parents also.
I think you just hit a really big one there, because out of the 7 children, and you're 5, there was something we really didn't anticipate. And that was understanding their grief.
Yes.
And their grief came out in all kinds of different behaviors.
Right.
As far as just being all out rebellious, as opposed to just disappearing from the face of the planet, because they just weren't equipped. And here we were blending the family. We had our rose-colored glasses on until, literally a couple of days into the thing. It was like, whoa, what is all this? That's the concept. Hey, when you step into a blended family, you're stepping onto a moving train, and it'll rip your arms off if you're. So we didn't see that coming. Was
right.
Our own grief, let alone our children.
And I think it's important to say then, even though we are talking about central to the issues is the marriage, we do have to also consider what the kids are going through. And as we see these signs of grief, whether it's through behavior, that's usually where we see it, is behavior that we might not recognize as really grief when they're acting out.
Right.
Then we need to make sure that we are having conversations with them to try to help with that. And I'm wondering, as a dad, did you try to be intentional with that with your biological kids?
Yeah, there was something that we did fairly early on, Gayla, that was really scary, but also very effective, in what we called floor time. We did that with one another's own, our biological children and in that case, my stepchildren. But how it worked was basically Brenda and I were both in the room. We sat on the floor. It was a private place, and we literally led with vulnerability. The biological parent let out, but it was the perspective of, hey, this is all new to us as well. This is kind of clumsy. It's awkward. This is what we're experiencing. So it made it safe with our vulnerability. And then we said, how's it going for you? And it was kind of revealing. The ground rules were, you can say anything you want, just keep it respectful. And whatever's said in this room stays here. Here's a clue if any of your ladies wants to try this. The key is to start with the kid in the crowd who is as what we call the informant.
Oh, okay.
because there's always one, because they all talk amongst each other.
Yes, they
And
do.
when we first started, we started with the one who basically was going to keep their mouth closed no matter what. And it was hard, but that created a sense of safety, and little by little they opened up. And that's something, now that they're in their 30s and 40s, it's a little different, but we still practice that. And it's around how are they feeling emotionally, because the dynamics of the step family, they're still there.
They are, even as adults. You're exactly right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter whether your kiddos are 5, 15, or going on, I hate to say this out loud, 45. It's like, I'm not that old, but the dynamic is still there.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little further. Help me understand. Did you tell them ahead of time you were going to, was this a regular thing where you would sit down and so everybody knew, and they could even be thinking about if they were struggling with something in their family? Oh, well, we're going to have our family night Friday night, and I'm going to talk about this. I mean, what was the rhythm of it?
Yeah, I mean, when you sensed that there was tension in the camp, let's just say.
That's a good way to say it.
There was tension in the camp. We would say, hey, we're gonna create a space. We called it floor time, just for each of you to come in, and you can say as much or as little as you want. We just want to create that space for you have a safe place to talk. And some of them would come in and open up, and others would just, boy, they were as tight as they were just as tight as they could be. And some of those were my kids, because in some cases you could tell that it wasn't an intense parent alienation, but it was a mild form of parent alienation that I encountered. And with Brenda's help, we kind of got through it a little bit at a time. So it was a consistent thing for the earlier part of our years. Of course, as they grew up and moved away, it's changed.
It changes, sure, right. But I think the important part is that you do it in those early years. That's when usually the most tension is happening, in those integration years, when we're trying to integrate these two kids. Yeah. And I like...
one case that I was working on about a year ago with a blended family, the stepdad was just tangling with his stepson, who at that time was 13. And by the way, ladies, you may or may not know this, but that when your sons turn about 12 or 13, their brains fall out. And they don't really return until they're about 25. So, but with this stepdad, he was so frustrated. I mean, they were on the verge of divorce because of it. And they loved each other, and it was like breaking my heart. But I says, you gotta lead, Dad. And Mom she's fit to be tied, because she loves her son, and she's getting pulled in two directions because she's trying to defend her son. You got to step up. Right. Well, interestingly enough, I introduced floor time to them, and it started to give that reconnection, because when this family was forming, the boy, who was at the time when they got married was maybe 7 or 8. Well, gosh, the stepdad and the stepson had a pretty good relationship, but as things went by, they had a couple more children that added to the dynamic. You see where it's going. Yeah. And he had lost connection with the stepson. And of course, what does the stepson do? He starts acting up.
Yeah.
And it was that place of floor time. And I'll have to put a plug in again for Family Life's Weekend to Remember. They have that breakout for blended families, and this couple went to that, and that actually was a turning point as well. So between the counseling and the blended family breakout at Weekend to Remember, it got the couple over the hump, so to say.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I've had a question come in. Let's look at this. One lady says, my husband seems always frustrated with my kids. I would love for my husband to have a better relationship with my kids. What can he do to move forward with that? And I might even say, what can we as women do to help you guys when we are seeing this? How can we help you understand? Obviously we can talk about wanting a better relationship, but what else can we do, Gil?
Well, a couple things come to my mind. Wow. First and foremost, when you're having a difficult time connecting with your stepchild, and you're not getting compliance out of them, that's early on. That ain't your job, dude. Guys, that's not your job. Your job is to be that crazy uncle, to where they kind of go, yeah, he's crazy, but we like him. You are in a place to where it is all about forming a friendship and building trust. Who is this guy? Well,
Right.
how do you do that? You don't do it disciplining them, because what you're going to do is turn that kid off, whether they're 5, maybe, but when they're in their early mid-teens or pre-teens, what I call tweener years, that is the last thing you want to do, is be the enforcer. If you're doing that, and ladies, if you aren't, whoa, this is going to sting, girls. If you are not disciplining your child, and you're putting your husband in the position to discipline your children, that is the worst place you can put him.
Right.
Absolutely the worst place. You need your new husband to befriend your children. And honestly, this is going to sound really weird, girls, but I have sat with Ron and a number of other people that when us men are connecting with your children, we understand that that is somewhat of an aphrodisiac to you. Well, why is that? Because we're loving your children. But if you put us in a position to discipline your children because you're not doing it, don't stop.
Right.
Stop, because what your guy needs to do early on, as the relationship grows, he might be able to do that over time. But what your guy needs to do is take that kid to ice cream, go shoot hoops, do whatever your kid loves. Because in that case, I took one of my stepsons to play, tennis.
Right.
I'm not a runner, but I would go show up with one of my stepsons at his cross country meets. I
Mm-hmm.
was there as a support, not as a disciplinarian.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing that, boy, rearrange it and work together. But in that spot, last point on this is that when you do have to do the disciplinarian thing with your kiddos, have your guy present, but don't have him be the mouthpiece.
Right.
Give him that space so they can see that that guy is supporting you
Mm-hmm.
and that you're a team.
Mm-hmm. And also so that that child knows your husband is aware of everything that's being asked of him. And yeah, but it does just show support that you are a team and how this is being
Right.
handled.
Hey, kiddo, no divide and conquer. We're together.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And the other thing I was going to mention about, and I totally agree, find what the kid likes, go do it with them. But in the early years, the mom might need to go too. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
kind of awkward for the step
Yeah.
parent to go by themselves, and you
Yeah.
just kind of have to play that out
Yeah.
and figure it out.
Yeah. Age appropriate. I 100% on that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard Dr. Julie Slattery, she's a friend of the ministry. You're probably familiar with her. She says that men are uniquely sensitive to failure and criticism. So do you agree with that, Gil?
Ouch. Yeah. Your guys, be they 6'2" or 5'7", they might be brawny men, but they're boys inside. And if you pluck their pain just right, they'll crumble.
And what do we do sometimes as women in blended families that can create more of a sense of failure?
Well, yeah, I think you might mean well, girls, with your criticism, but depending upon what's in that man as a boy or as a young man or in his first marriage, whether he's entering into this marriage with you via death or divorce, just know that there's pain there.
Right.
But there's a sense of identity for men that I'm trying to get this right. I'm trying to provide. I'm trying to keep the peace. And when I don't feel like I'm doing that, then it's in essence almost a dig at his identity. And some of us can be really like, I'll bite a bullet and just keep on moving. When in reality, I'm hurting. I was at a men's retreat a couple of years ago in Colorado, and one of the best things I heard, and this was a group of probably about 400 or 500 guys in the room, and the one of the speakers said, "Hey guys, what your wives may not remember is that you are men, and yeah, you're tough, but get over yourself, guys. We know you have emotions and you hurt. Your pain is important too."
Right.
And I think that that's where sometimes we as men want to keep our shoulders, because that's what we're called to do, is to be protectors to a point. Because women are fierce as well. Quite frankly, ladies, some of you scare me because you are strong women and we need that. However, sometimes it's like, okay, hold on. You see things in us and then you go after us, and that actually shuts us down.
Right.
And the very thing that you want is the very thing that you just now pushed away. It's very counterintuitive to say, rather than a criticism, to place a very well-placed, kind complaint. I have a complaint to register with you, but it's like the sandwich effect.
Yes.
Here's a compliment. Here's the bologna that I got to have you eat, and then here's the other compliment.
I was going to say the same thing. Yes.
It's so hard for women to do that, and there's a scripture, and you and I were kind of talking about this before, and I think this is the appropriate place to share it.
Yes.
In Proverbs chapter 12, there's two verses I'm going to read. One is from chapter 12 and one's from chapter 14, but chapter 12 of Proverbs, and I'm reading from the Amplified, so if it sounds weird, it's okay. Here it goes. Chapter 12, verse 4 says, "A virtuous and worthy wife, earnest and strong in character, is a crowning joy to her husband. But she who makes him ashamed is as rottenness in his bones."
Rottenness.
And that rottenness in his bones. And that, like, whoa, because in my Bible, and this is where I want to be very, very respectful to both, and sounds really weird, to both of my wives, my wife now and my first wife.
Okay.
I have one who was at one time a crowning jewel in my life, and then something, whatever happened in the story, I mean, it rips my gut out, but she became as rottenness in my bones because everything I did was criticized. But then when the remarriage started and I sensed that criticism again, it was like, oh no, here we go again. We got to stop that. And then we worked through it with some of the principles we've talked about already. And then it was like, okay, now there's this crowning jewel because that is Brenda's character. So that kind of is a real ouch. But then if you go to chapter 14 of Proverbs, chapter 14, verse 1, it says, "Every wise woman builds her house, but the foolish one will tear it down with her own hands." And so in so many ways, girls, you have a lot of power.
Right.
And that power, if used in a way, and some of us guys, we're emotionally illiterate, sorry, and we have to be educated, but we have feelings.
Right.
And if we don't know how to share them, slow down. This is where always forward, just go slow comes in. Slow down. We're trying to catch up.
Yeah. And I think it has to be a safe environment, or you're not going to share those feelings. So you have to know that your wife is going to listen to you.
Yeah. You just hit it out of the park, Gayla, because safety is, I'm not in physical harm's way, like I'm going to get run over by a hurricane. Emotional safety, and this is something Brenda and I talked about really early on. And I said, honey, if I'm vulnerable, which is the very thing that you want, right, then I've got to be able to know that what I'm about to share, you aren't going to weaponize it against me, because that's what I did before. Yes. And it got weaponized, and then I shut down. And the very thing that she wanted, I would not give her. Mm-hmm. Because now, girls, you've become your own worst enemy. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And safety for both husband and wife is paramount, because below that is the entire principle of trust. Mm-hmm. And without trust and honesty, the marriage is going to suffer. And then what's going to happen? It's going to ripple out into the family, because, again, the strongest bond for a blended family is the marriage.
Right. Right. I think those are some important points. And I think we as women might have an easier time of being vulnerable. So when we hear our guy being vulnerable, we need to really be careful with what we do with that information, and acknowledging that we're thankful. We want to hear more. We want to be able to take it in and know what to do with it. I might ask some additional questions, but all of that, I just think is important for women to remember, because sometimes you guys, you have a front that is strong and capable, and but there's more underneath that we don't always see, that we need to remember is there.
Gayla, I think as your girls listen to this, and women, I just got to say this, you are so spot on, because actually your men and women too, because I've encountered women in my practice who've had problems with vulnerability because of what's, so to say, is in their basement. It's in their
Yes.
DNA. Okay.
Right.
However, to your point, your guy, you can see through him most of the time, because sometimes they are big fat posers. That's how they operate in the world, until you can kind of go, come on, be honest with me. But if you're going to be honest with me, I'm going to keep your vulnerability. And honestly, your tears are sacred, because if you're wounded, that wound, woo, because you don't, as men, we're not going to share our wounds with anybody unless we really know we can trust them, because
Right.
it's hallowed ground. And
Right.
so we're going to keep up our pose unless we realize, oh, we can let down our shield. And this has been something developed over a lifetime.
Right.
And now I'm going to come clear with you. Well, sister, I got news for you. Not so fast. Always forward, just go slow, because your guy's trying to catch up.
Right.
And maybe you're a fortunate lady, and you have a guy who really is emotionally engaged and aware of who he is. Then count your blessings. But I love your point, Gayla, in that when your guy has been vulnerable with you, then don't go to problem solving too quickly about the issue at hand. It's go deeper, go slower, and then you'll actually speed things up. Again, this is so counterintuitive to how we are wired, because we want to get a solution because we're frustrated and it's painful. But it's that beauty of that, when you can get behind the pose, and girls, you have it as well. I love you, but we all have that. And when that can happen, oh my gosh, the dancing begins to happen at that. We're in, it's a symphony.
Right. And the scripture you read in Proverbs 14:1, where it talks about the wise woman builds her house, but the foolish one tears it down with her own hands. The truth is, we all want to be wise. We want to be wise women. And all of this comes into play as we are wise in our home, are wise in our relationships. And one of the things that we can think about with our guys is we can empower them as we call out their strengths, or we can be critical and we can shut them down.
Right. Right.
It can happen so fast.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I mean, one of the modalities that I use often in my practice is a thing called strength-based or strength solution-based. But it's basically, when I see somebody who's really been beat down, the thing that I'm listening for, I'm looking for, I'm observing, I'm really trying to just get into their shoes, is they've forgotten who they are.
Oh, wow.
And they kind of, well, I'm not. And they go into this shame rather than actually their self-esteem and their confidence needs a shot of Holy Spirit inspired rejuvenation, restoration. I mean, that was really the whole point of how I Restored and Remarried came about, was because there was restoration in both myself and in Brenda because of all the great train wrecks that we went through. But I think that it's kind of a concept that we have a negative sentiment and we'll call that out 5 times to 1, but the positives, and that's Gottman clearing through, it's a researchable thing if you're familiar with the Gottman Institute, but 5 to 1, we're going to call out the negative. And it's like, whoa. And I'll literally, when I'm working with couples, whether they're first or second, it's like, when you see something positive that your husband or your wife did, say it. Don't think it, say it.
Right.
Because that strength, if you fan that, they're going to go, oh, thank you. Well, as a man, I feel treasured. I feel seen. I feel like, hey, I'm getting it right, rather than, oh, I blew it again, and I walk off with my tail between my legs. Oh gosh, I can't make her happy.
And it comes more naturally for some than others, Gil, to be able to call out strengths. Maybe you see them, but you don't necessarily call them out. You're just thinking, oh, he knows that. No, it just like you said, if you're thinking it, say it. If it's positive, And yeah, I mean,
well said.
and call out strengths. I think that is so important for us to remember, and that as women, we carry a lot of power in our relationship with our husbands.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
really important to remember that. Okay, let's look at let's some practical. Again, I have a question. My husband refuses to discipline his kids or hold them accountable in any way. Then I step in and become the bad guy. What
Uh,
should I do in this situation?
well, that is a tough position to be in. You kind of have to, behind closed doors, go, hey, sweetheart, what's with the reluctance? I don't understand why you're not stepping in. Help
Yeah.
me understand, because you're putting me as your new wife in a really bad position with your children. So we have to have peace in the home, but tell me what's going on, and then how do I help you? Because you're bringing some old baggage that maybe you haven't realized, but
Yes.
lovingly, I'm calling you out here. I'm not criticizing. I'm actually trying to support you. So don't be misunderstood. Don't misunderstand what I'm doing here, honey, because you're a good man. I know you have a good heart, but why what's with the reluctance? I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to retract that word why on purpose, because why is not a good question. It puts people on defense.
It does.
But
I
but
agree.
when you can ask a what or a how, much better. Reframe your question with a what or a how, because it's much more approachable,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm here to learn with you. And so, okay, when that comes up again, little Johnny is out of order. What's happening? Is it because of something happening in the dynamic between our home and the other home?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because you never took that position? This is a new day. This is a new place. This is safe. Let's work together as a team. That's kind of the beginning of the process, because who knows how he was disciplined when he was a little kid. Maybe honestly, he just don't know better.
Right. I think too, though, something that comes up in blended families sometimes, and I'm curious what you would say to this, is that sometimes our guys are afraid because of the power of the other home, the biological mom in another home, and how it's going to come back to bite him if he
Yeah.
comes down too hard. Or, I mean, how do you address that?
Well, that's a super deep, complicated one, but you're going to face it, even in maybe even some of the best of situations, but the worst of situations. That's again where the parent alienation thing comes in, and saying, well, here I have my children only a period of time, and I don't want to cause a ripple because I don't want to lose connection with my kids. But if I come off as the heavy, then they're going to take that back to their mother or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And then they're not going to want to come see me. So now this guy is stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
Now, what do I do?
Right.
Well, you can't be a pushover dad, because honestly, discipline is loving. I mean, it's pretty scriptural. It's how
Mm-hmm.
you come off. Are you too harsh? But in some places, it's like, okay, what is it that you're afraid? What's the worst case scenario? Let's get behind your eyes and
Yes.
your intentions to not act. There might be something there that your guy believes that might be distorted,
Mm-hmm.
but it could be fear. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciated with Ron Deal early on was, in his training and in mine, when you hear fear come up, chase it down gently but relentlessly.
Right.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's something as you ladies can do. You're gentle, but you can be relentless. And that is there's the power,
Mm-hmm.
because there's the balance between, okay, relentless or gentle. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where your guy can kind of go, okay, I can trust her. I'll do this. But that's the thing that us guys are working with, is because if that kid is going back and forth between the other parent and my home, I don't want to screw that up, that I don't want my kids not to like me. Well, that's the
Right.
place. And this is where the guys, I'd have to pull them aside and kind of go, you're a parent. You're not their friend.
Exactly. Right.
You know,
And I think sometimes that women, as we just help our men talk through this, then maybe we can help give them a different perspective, give them insight if
bingo,
it's done in a humble position. And
bingo.
yeah, and just help them gain a better
Oh,
perspective.
I so appreciate that, Gayla, because perspective, I mean, in my practice as a counselor, there's two things that I really keep in the forefront of my mind. Lord God, help me create a safe place. And then, Lord God, with your wisdom, help me provide perspective to this person, because they're too close to the situation, because it's too painful, it's distorted,
Right.
it's pathological.
Yes.
What's the perspective, so that they then have a point that they can make a choice. Then
Yeah,
they're empowered. And
absolutely.
as a wife, oh my gosh, that, and Brenda did that a lot for me, because it was like I was just catastrophized. I just like, and she goes, whoa, 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 slow down. And that perspective that she provided actually went, oh, I could do this differently. And I didn't feel criticized. I felt heard, which then
Right.
made me feel loved, treasured, wanted. And that helped me then even connect with her kids more, which was really good.
I love that.
Perspective. It's great. You girls, oh my gosh, you have insights that we need, but humbly, how do you present it to us so
So
that we
you can
don't shut
hear
down?
it. Yeah, so
Exactly.
you can hear it.
Yeah.
Okay, before we sign off, Gil, I want to hear about Unsung Heroes, because I think that's a great resource for our men. So just tell me about it a little bit.
That was so fun. We did Unsung Heroes a couple of years ago, but the purpose of why I did it is Unsung Heroes, encouragement for men in step families. Whether you're a stepdad or a biological dad, but you're in a step family, there were about 6 or 7 episodes that we did that would basically just kind of broke the ice. And I basically brought up kind of taboo issues of like, how do I tell my wife about this? How do I get any encouragement? And, the reason why we put it together is because, for in the step family world of resources, there's lots of stuff for you ladies, because you just dig this stuff up. But for men, there wasn't a whole lot out there. There was a little bit that Ron had done, and a little bit here, but in a video seance, I just put together issues that were like between a rock and a hard place, which was loyalty to my wife or my kids. Okay, that was one of them. Why did we do this? Well, it was allowing somebody to put it into words. And this was where we had a lot of women who came back and said, whoa, I had no idea my guy was feeling that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it gave the men ability to kind of open up a topic without it becoming a fight. And the men saying, well, if you just do this, which is not the right way to go, guys, but this is what I need. This is what I'm experiencing. And it allowed a way for the guys to get some encouragement, but for their ladies to kind of go, oh, now I get it. Because it's like the one that I mentioned earlier, reverse betrayal. I want to connect with my kids, but I don't see them. And now I'm connecting with your kids, and I feel like I'm betraying my own. How do I put that into words to my wife? Because girls, you want us to connect with your children. Yes. And I wanted to, but I felt like I was betraying my own. I'm now in a dilemma. Well, how do I explain that to my wife? So that was the point.
Yeah.
So that's about, there's a number of other things, too much too soon. There's one about creating an emotional safety zone. And we shot these all online, or, not online, but we shot these all outdoors, and I'm doing stuff. So it's interactive, and they're short and sweet and to the point.
Yeah, they're very good. We've been through the material. It's very good. So we'll have information in the comments about how women can find that. Thank you for joining us, Gil. You have so much to offer.
Appreciate it. Very much appreciate it.
Well, if our viewers want to connect with you further, where might they find you?
Our website is gilandbrenda.com. And then if you go to gilandbrenda.com and just find the tab that says Restored and Remarried, and that'll just open up, the Unsung Heroes and other resources that we do, and how you can get in touch with us. That's kind of the simple part, gilandbrenda.com, and then just find Restored and Remarried. So again, that's the easiest place. Gayla, thank you for the honor to sit with you and with the women who gain so much with your ministry. And so again, God bless you for everything you do. And so I'll say, always forward.
That's right.
Just go slow.
Thank you. Thank you, Gil. So appreciate you. Ladies, make plans to join us next month, July the 8th, for my conversation with Kim Anderson on co-parenting. Kim has a lot of knowledge and personal experience on how to co-parent well when kids move between homes, even if there's a difficult ex-spouse in the other home. So make plans to join us. Also, registration is open for our annual summit on step family ministry, where we want to equip you as a ministry leader or a counselor to serve blended families in your church or community. Our theme this year is Press On. Mark your calendar, October 23rd through the 24th. This is a live event in Nashville, Tennessee. Rondile and I and many other speakers will be there. Find all the details at summitonstepfamilies.com. And then to mention a book I have coming out in July, I've updated my devotional book, previously titled Step Parenting with Grace. It is now beautifully blended, 101 devotions to encourage couples in blended families. I've written new devotions. I've edited many of them. Short devotions meant to offer nuggets of hope and wisdom that point you to biblical solutions for blended families. Be sure you're following Family Life Blended on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Have your notifications turned on so you're notified when we go live. God bless you, ladies. Thank you for joining us. If you would like more encouragement on how to love and honor your husband well, I invite you to watch the live stream that I did with Dr. Julie Slattery in February this year, titled Finding the Hero in Your Husband. She has written a book by that title. You'll find a link in the comments to that. And if you're not aware, you can find all the women and blended family live streams on our YouTube channel. And as we conclude, I want us to consider the role that humility plays in the relationship with our husband. God often reminds me that humility shows honor in relationships. Ephesians 4:2 says, be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Keep pressing on, ladies. I'll see you next time.